Well, good morning here. Jeff Ray, President and CEO, South Bend Regional Chamber here today, sitting down for candidate conversations. And today we've got Hodge Patel, candidate for County Commissioner. And Hodge, thanks for joining me this morning.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate this opportunity, Jeff, to get in front of you and your members.
Great. Well, we're going to spend the next 20 minutes just getting to know you and talking to you a little bit more. Many people know you already, Hodge. You've been very active in our community for many years in a variety of different roles. But for the benefit of those who may not, or maybe you haven't had a chance to connect to, tell us a little bit about who Hodge is.
Sure. So now I do have a twin brother who goes by Hodge as well, but I'm the candidate Hodge, if that's helpful. So I moved to South Bend back in 1979. I have four siblings. They have chosen to live outside of the community, meaning outside the state, for a variety of reasons. Something that I have committed myself to is always to remain in Indiana. That's something that I've always done, in particular in South Bend, St. Joseph County. I went to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, St. Joseph High School, graduated from Notre Dame in 1997 with a degree in economics and in political science. During that time, I did some internships at a couple of Social Security office, at the prosecutor's office in LaPorte County, and then also with Congressman Tim Romer. And through those experiences, I was able to learn what I really enjoyed and had a passion for, and what I didn't want to do. And politics became a passion for me. After graduating from while I was doing my internship at Notre Dame with Congressman Romer, I was given the opportunity to interview for a position in Congressman Romer's office. This would be back in 1997, and accepted that position to do some constituent service, work on solving problems for individuals, whether it's a veteran, whether it's someone with a Social Security issue, an immigration issue, a small business issue, those sorts of things. So I did that for 4.5 years. Also was a field representative for Congressman Romer, where I covered 5 counties and did a lot of outreach. And so I had a lot of exposure to a variety of different things. From there, worked for Senator Evan Bayh as his regional director, and covered 21 counties. Something pretty neat, I think, is that I was able to open up our first Senate office in many, many decades in South Bend, which was right downtown over at the Leighton Plaza. And for him, I worked on medical device issues, agriculture, healthcare issues, Medicare, manufacturing, pretty wide range, defense issues, if I didn't already mention that. So did that for 5.5 years, and then connected with Congressman Donnelly, ran his district office, and then also was his state director for another 6 years. So it's about 22 years of federal experience, and have had broad exposure on a variety of things.
Great. Thank you, Hodge. Appreciate it. And thanks for your service and all you've done to the community. Really appreciate that. And thanks for your interest in running for office as well, too. We know that this day and age, finding good candidates is a challenge, and appreciate your willingness to throw your hat in the ring and go through this process. So you're seeking the St. Joseph County Commissioner District 3 post. So do two things for me. One, for those who are unfamiliar with what a county commissioner is or does, can you describe that position a little bit to us? And then second, tell us a little bit about where District 3 is, just to give people a frame of reference for the geography.
Sure. Excellent question, particularly number one. I have a special affection to that question because when I first started exploring this in November of last year, one of the first individuals that I called, I remember I worked for the hospital for St. Joe Health System, and I was right outside the building in my car, and I told my wife, Allie, I go, hey, Allie, I've got an idea here. I think I want to run for county commissioner. And she said no and hung up the phone. And I was like, I guess I'm not going to be able to run for county commissioner. Fortunately, an hour later, cooler heads prevailed. My wife did a Google search to figure out exactly what a county commissioner does. And we had a conversation about it. And so the county commissioner, it's an important role. You know, in the county, we have 270,000 residents. And Lake County and St. Joe County are unique in that we run in districts. So I'm a candidate for District 3. District 3 includes, and the best way for me to describe it to people are by high schools. So St. Joe High School is in the district, Trinity, Adams, Mishawaka, and Mishawaka, I think I mentioned Marion, Mishawaka High School and Penn High School. That gives you a geographical area. And so we're responsible for issues related to transportation and infrastructure, economic development, making sure, funding for the sheriff's department, the county jail, the prosecutor's office, all of the buildings and assets, the county parks. People drive by and maybe utilize these resources on a regular basis, but don't realize, who kind of helps manage all of that. And so that's kind of the role of the county commissioner. The budget for the county, I believe, for 2020 was about $159 million. So a significant amount of money of the taxpayers' dollar is utilized by the county commissioners. So hopefully that gives you kind of a good explanation of, why I kind of jumped in this thing and what that role is, and then also what it entails.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Hodge. Appreciate that. So as you talk about this executive level position that oversees each of those things you just mentioned, sort of align, kind of your skills and experiences with the need there, and maybe tell us, what is it about your skills and experience that make you a great candidate for that executive position?
Sure. I think I have a very unique background in that I've worked when I was on the congressional side for 22 years, worked with local communities, businesses, chambers of commerce, economic development folks, educators, colleges and universities, pretty wide range of folks. And so the knowledge that I've gained, projects that I've worked on around the state, down in southern Indiana, Jeffersonville, there's a place called River Ridge Commerce Center down there. 6,000 acres of developed. That it's not completely developed, but it's in process. We look up here in New Carlisle, the Indiana Enterprise Center. Projects like that. Those are things that I've learned in the past is what I can bring here for the future of St. Joseph County. In neighboring LaPorte County, Kingsbury Industrial Park, a World War II munitions facility, worked with the Army Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Army to get an easement so that we could get a rail line through there. So those sorts of things that I've worked on in the past, I think will bear fruit for the county in the future. And, I've been inside medical device companies, hospitals, healthcare systems, startup companies, MTI, that's here in South Bend, just on the west side of South Bend. They do friction welding. So I can go on and on about, different areas that I've touched where I can help grow our community in a positive way, helping create jobs, making sure that we have good wages for our workers and our families, and that we're also, helping to attract others to this community, whether they're young professionals or businesses that want to go ahead and expand here in our community.
Great. Thank you, Hodge. The county isn't without its challenges. Obviously, the last few years have been complicated, I think, on the revenue side. There's a longer list of wants to do than there is a money sometimes to do it. So maybe talk for a second or two about what you see as some of the biggest challenges that the county is facing or may face over the next few years.
Sure. So I think number one would be the budget for the county. If you look back 4 years ago, the budget for the county was $115 million. That was in 2016. Commissioner Fleming, was appointed initially in 2014, December of 14, elected in 2016, and now running again in 2020, as am I. The budget was $115 million. It's increased by $44 million over that 4-year span. So we also have a circuit breaker that's coming up. And then you look at the coronavirus. And so, people are going to have to choose between whether they're going to pay for their housing, right, put a roof over their heads and take care of their kids, feed their family, and pay property taxes. And so we have to be cognizant that we're not going to gain as much revenue at the county level because people aren't going to have the resources available to pay those bills. So we need to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. So we need to look comprehensively at what the budget is, where the spending is. And I'm a firm believer that you don't just take a hatchet to a problem, you take a scalpel, because there are certain things that are essential that we need to continue to maintain. And then there's those other things where we can probably cut a little bit more. So you got to find that reasonableness and that balance. And I think that's what I would bring to the position. The 911 center. I work for St. Joseph Health System, and on December 31st, there was a mother and many of you probably know this, there's a mother driving a minivan over by Ruth's Chris in Mishawaka and Costco, and her van unfortunately slid into a retention pond, and people responded quickly. There's some confusion at the 911 dispatch center as to, who do we send for that? Is that Mishawaka? Is that Clay? And I don't know that those hiccups or delays necessarily resulted in the death of two children and a significant injury to the mother, medically speaking. And fortunately, the youngest seems to be okay through this whole process. But I don't know that we could have saved lives. But Jeff, you could have somebody, one of your members' employees, a family member, it could be someone in my family that needs help. And maybe they didn't slide into a pond, but we need to make sure that our 911 responders are adequately trained and communicating properly with our first responders who are doing their job. And, I think when our first responders go out to help people, whether it's police or fire, their first intent is to make sure that they're there to serve and protect those in need. And so we need to make sure that our whole system works properly, including the 911 system. So that's the second one. The other thing that I've heard a lot about is the Indiana Enterprise Center out in New Carlisle, economic development project. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I kind of mentioned River Ridge Commerce Center down in Jeffersonville, and then the Kingsbury project as well. One of my concerns with this is the process that was used. I think it's important to let people have a seat at the table, bring them in early, listen to them. And actually, let me touch on this. Something that my campaign's focused on, and once elected, this will be a message that I continue to carry forward. LEAD, L-E-A-D. That's to listen, to engage, to be accessible, and then fourth, to be decisive with the tax dollars. And so that's what we need to do with the IEC. We need to do that with the 911 center and with the budget. And so I don't know that we did a good enough job listening on the Indiana Enterprise Center early on. I think we've pivoted in the right direction to have those conversations, to bring people in the fold. We're going to need to do more. When I was in the Senate, there was a request to do a 22,000 acre study. That's something that I was not supportive of. I just thought that was just like too broad. There wasn't enough buy-in. We didn't do our homework on the front end with that. Had we done our homework, I would have probably had a different approach to it. So I think we're headed in the right direction with economic development. I think what the county council did, I was at that meeting till it was a few weeks ago till 12:46 in the morning. And I think that was a smart decision to allow, based on the 2002 plan, to do the 760 some acres, allowing that to go to, I'll call it light industrial. And that's reasonable. See, so as these conversations started to evolve, we all became more open-minded and reasonable to the process. But when we try and force things down, that's when we run into problems. So those are three issues there, Jeff, that I think are important and things that are going to carry forward past the election, if I'm elected. So.
Great. Thank you, Hodge. Appreciate that. So, kind of on the flip side of that, my guess is you've identified some great opportunities as well for the county going forward. So, so what's high on the list of opportunities for the county moving forward?
So I'm a big fan of best practices of different things. And so let me give you two examples. One, I want to talk about the taxpayers, right, who are also the voters. We need to be responsive. I can give you two quick examples. I won't go into details on them, where people have reached out to me because their county government, their elected officials haven't been responsive. We're the hired help. The elected officials are the hired help, and we have to understand that. If somebody calls or emails and needs help from the county or from an elected official, we need to be responsive. These are folks I've never met in my life until they, saw that I was running for office and they weren't getting a response, so they engaged me. One was in a subdivision over in Osceola where they had an issue with the road deteriorating. This has been going on for 6 years, according to the homeowner. I have no reason to doubt it. We then finally got engaged. A young girl was actually injured. And Jeff, you have kids that are a little bit older than mine, but I have, twin 8-year-olds, and a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter, and they ride their bikes, and there's a dip in the road, and it's loose gravel, and that girl fell off of her bike and scraped up her face. And that homeowner was like, "We need to get this thing fixed." And so that's when he engaged me on this, because the county wasn't responsive. Another example over in, it seems like Osceola has a number of examples, but the second one would be with the rail. There's an opportunity for us to not necessarily use our local tax dollars, but there's federal and state dollars out there to make those railroad tracks safer. There's a young man who drove around the gates and ended up getting clobbered by a train, died. And there's something called quadrant gates. There's dollars available for this. Instead of us, I understand. I mentioned the budget earlier. We don't have $30 million to do an overpass or underpass, but we can make that secure for county residents by thinking through things. My experience, 22 years of congressional experience, taught me that there's some other programs and opportunities out there that we should access. So those are a couple of examples, Jeff, of just kind of things that are out there that need to be addressed.
Great. Thank you, Hodge. Again, I'm sitting down with Hodge Patel. He's the St. Joseph County Commissioner candidate for District 3. Hodge, we're got about 4 minutes or so left here. One, maybe next, will you talk just a little bit about your vision for the county? So obviously this position plays a really important leadership role there. Talk about your vision for the county going forward.
Right. Okay. So I'm running as a Democrat, but I'll tell you what, I have a great relationship with not only Republican business owners, but Republican elected officials. There are a number of elected officials that I call and text. We've just worked on projects. I don't think that you have to, because you're an elected official, you have to play politics. There's a political season, and that's called the election. After the election, you're elected to govern. And so I'm going to be an adult in the room. I get along with Commissioner Castelny. Commissioner Castelny and I could easily disagree on something, but we're not going to do it in a public forum that poorly reflects on our county. We need to be cognizant of that. We might have in a county commissioner meeting or someone reading the South Bend Tribune or one of our TVs, going online to one of our news stations and reading an article. We need to make sure we are properly representing this county, the business owners, the people who are invested here, and the taxpayers, because those folks could read a bad headline and experience and see something and just say, you know what, South Bend or St. Joseph County or Mishawaka or Roseland, that's not for me. So being an adult in the room, I plan to work bipartisan with not only the city council members, but the county council members and the county commissioners. I think there's more that we agree upon and can find ways to agree on things. And the things we disagree on, we need to be respectful of. So hopefully that's helpful.
Great. Thank you, Hodge. So in our last minute, obviously elections are about differentiating yourselves from some other folks. So give us kind of the 1 minute, what differentiates you from your opponent?
Sure. Pretty easy. Transparency. She talks about transparency on her website, yet she refuses to debate me on the issues. And I think it's important. Listen, the voters and the taxpayers deserve an opportunity to see both candidates head to head discuss the issues that are important. I mentioned earlier, there's a $44 million increase in the county's budget. Let's have a discussion about that, a head to head debate to make sure that the taxpayers are able to understand where their resources are going and why they're being spent. That's a drastic increase. The other thing that I'll say is that I'm very visible. I've been attending Mishawaka City Council meetings, county council meetings. I've been out and about talking to folks. And that's not just because it's campaign season. That's my personality. I want to be out there and lead this county, and that's what they're going to get if they elect Commissioner Patel.
Great, Hodge. Thank you so much. Again, Hodge Patel, candidate for District 3, St. Joseph County Commissioner. Hodge, if folks are seeking more information about your candidacy, the positions that are important to you, what's the best way for them to find that information?
Sure. So our website is www.hodge, HODGE, 4, FOR, commissioner.com. You can also find me on Facebook. And one other thing I'll do is my cell phone number, if you want to reach out to me, it's 574-304-2905. That number is given to you as a part of being transparent and also being accountable to you. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.
Hodge, we're grateful for the time you spent with us today. Thanks for helping our members get to know you a little bit better. Appreciate that. Good luck in the election coming up, and we'll look forward to seeing you along the way. Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks for creating all the jobs.